Welcome, everybody. I am Claudine from Outdoor Play Connection, and I am so excited to be here with my friend Megan Duncan. And we are here to basically talk to you about a book that we strongly recommend that is going to be the baseline of what we're going to start our conversations in. And just to give you a little bit about us, we would like to tell you who we are and why we're talking about the nature-based early childhood education book. So, I'm Claudine Mossberg. I am the founder and director of Outdoor Play Connection. We are an outdoor, all weather education program that's an enrichment program. So we run programs that are a couple times a week, and also pop ups throughout the month for all ages. So I work with ages 2 through teen. And we also do hikes for adults. And a little bit about me on how I got started. When my daughter was born, I was in Brooklyn and I noticed that she was, not really interacting with a lot of the classes I went to. And so I tried this new class that was out in Prospect Park. And I could not believe how she gravitated directly to the teachers that were there and everything that was going on. It was like instantaneously she was interacting. And it just made me remember that when I was a child, my favorite time was to go out down the block and play in the woods that were down my block. And it just really made me reconnect with my childhood and why that was so important. And I saw this blossom in her and her development that I was like, we have to keep doing this. Now, very shortly after, about a year or so two later, we had to move out of New York City and we moved into New Jersey. And to meet other people, I just put out there saying, hey, let's get together with people who want to do things that we want to do. So I just asked other parents. I was like, hey, does anyone want to meet with us in the local reservation and get together? And we met on a day. I will never forget this. It had just rained like a ton. So there were huge puddles in the area that we were meeting. And there were just children running through these puddles, having the time of their life. They were just splashing, running, and the parents were just it's just like a sense of relief where they could just be and observe and be together. And what was constantly being said was, can you do this more? Can we do this more? And I was like, well, I'd love to, but I also have my own children and I can't really run a program 5 days a week. So I just started helping other families learn how to get outdoors and how to kind of create their own outdoor communities. And so that's kind of where I started, was just encouraging and empowering other parents to get outdoors when they're getting together in their play dates and with groups. A few years went by, and then I was continuing to just kind of get groups outside and have these great play groups outdoors. And then the pandemic happened, and a lot of my friends said, hey, can you do that thing where you get us together? And I said, okay, it's time. And so that's when Outdoor Play Connection was born, where I really wanted to reconnect people with nature, get us outside, get us together again, and build community. It was such a big need, and it still is a need. So, Play Connection is really the foundation of bringing communities together. And we have this wonderful foundation of really thinking about the children and following the children and letting them guide us through this journey and being outdoors. So our programs are child led, they are child focused. All of our guides really focus on connecting with the children. We also allow parents to come to any classes. We are drop off optional, which is something that's unique about us. We want parents to feel comfortable to come, whether they want to learn with their child or if they just want to support their child and being there and helping with that transition. Then we also have parent-child classes for our younger years. And this has really been a great way for parents to meet others and build community for themselves and for their children. And we are a inclusive and neuroaffirming program. So we have lots of kiddos who are achieving so many goals out in nature for their development. And that is just such a wonderful thing to be able to witness and see. So I love what I do. I kind of fell into it through following my daughter's lead, and she's now 15 years old. So it's been over a decade for me in this journey, and it's just brought me so much joy and watching my children really just benefit from being out in nature. It is something we do every week. We are always out at least once or twice a week, consistently, even now that they're older. My kids are now 7, 13, and 15, and we are still out, and they prioritize it, which I think is really important to know is that when we show them that this is important, they will hold on to that. And so they find it very important for them and their grounding and their weeks with their studies. And as they move on, is that they need to be out. I am a homeschool mom, so I do homeschool my 3 kids and run Outdoor Play Connection, and run this, a whole family. But I'll tell you right now, it's really good for me to ground also in getting outdoors. So I love what I do and how it helps me and my kids and so many other families. And I'm excited to have this conversation and to have Megan here with us because she's got such an amazing story too. And we're just really excited to be here together sharing with you. So I would like to introduce Megan Duncan. She is with Connected Kids Thrive and Positive Behaviors Guide for Nature-Based Schools. And our paths have crossed many, many times, and we love the conversations that come out when we get together. So we decided that you all should benefit from our conversations too. So, Megan, please tell everybody about how you've come to where you are now and all about all the wonderful things you do.
Thank you, Claudine, and thank you so much for hosting this and putting this together so that we can really enjoy ourselves and also, like you just said, share everything we know and love our passion with everyone out there, our listeners. So super excited to be here, everybody. Yes, I am Megan Duncan. I am the CEO of Connected Kids Thrive, Positive Behavior Guide for Nature Schools. And so, how I got here is I was asked to serve nature schools. I got certified in Monica's program. That's the book that we're studying. And even though I didn't have a nature school at that time, I had had one before. But a I was serving parents whenever a woman that I got certified through Anby with. She reached out to me and she said, "I see what you're doing with parents and how you're training them to understand behavior better so they can have, a calmer family, more peaceful. And I need you. Would you be willing to create something for my school, my team, so that we can understand behavior better and really serve the kids better?" And I was like, "Oh, yes." And so I did. And that's what I get to do now. And it's brings me so much joy also. I didn't start here, of course. My background is in speech therapy, communication delays and disorders. So that really helps me do what I do. I did have a nature school a long time ago when my kiddo was 3. Of course, many of us start nature schools because it comes a time in their life when we need to put them in school, right? That 2 years old, and we look at what's around and it's not always amazing what we find. So many of us, and this is my story, we decide to start our own. Um, what I love and how this pulls in behavior a little bit is even though I had this idea that I'm going to do it better and more amazing because I didn't like what I saw, I kind of inadvertently started practicing the same stuff that I saw that I didn't like because I didn't know better. And that's what I love about behavior. We we have to change on purpose if we're going to have behavior change. And so even for my own example, I was doing the same stuff that I didn't even like that I saw. And so it was actually the children who inspired me to change my own behavior. It was feeling kind of weird in my school as far as I was adult directed. I was the wisdom imparter for these children. And one day we were just out and I was just in a more relaxed state. The kiddos were playing and we as a group the kiddos noticed a little ladybug on a branch. And through their inquiry, and I just kind of sat back and observed, and they invited me in, in moments of their conversation. But what transpired was this ladybug on a branch led them to question whether space had a smell. And wow, right? Like kids just don't often get that time and space to really let their own curiosities lead them to those deep, important questions. And that was really the moment that solidified, okay, that's that nature-based education. That's what that is. That's that emergent curriculum and how important and meaningful it can be. And that's what I love about this book too, is it's going to help us and our listeners really be able to take a step back and let nature and kiddos kind of lead the way, um, and give us permission and confidence and power and all those good things in kind of there's a spider coming down. Hey, buddy. All right, I'm just gonna put him
Cue nature to join
down.
us.
Yeah, put him in this plant. Hey, buddy. All right. Okay. Have fun. All right. There we go. I'm back.
That was great.
Um, and so yes, I take schools through, I work with teams, nature school teams, because what I know also about behavior is we have to equip the adult first. Yes, little Johnny really struggling, at the mud pit or whatever. It's the adult and how they approach that child that matters. And it's the adult's behavior that matters first. So if we want to change behavior, we got to start with the adult. And so I work with teams in doing that, getting their whole team on the same page and understanding behavior so they can approach it better. And what I know is challenging behaviors from the children, and then the staff who they're amazing team members that founders have handpicked, their hearts in the right place. And so what I have found and what I help nature schools get back to is the place that dream that they dreamt of in the beginning. Because when, those challenges present over and over and
Mm.
over, their school doesn't look like what they thought it was going to be. And so I help them get back to that, or, or at least evolve it to how they want it to be. But I remember how isolated and lonely it was to have a nature school, and how frustrating it was when things didn't quite go the way I wanted them to, when I had dreamt it. So, um, yeah, my work in early childhood intervention, speech therapy, my own nature-based school, and I'm a foster mom. And I will tell you that has been the single most empowering journey as far as the behavior piece that I get to do. My little guy, who's also 7, he has taught me more than any college course or even my daughter. He has been my prime educator. And so I have learned more about my own behavior and how to help him with his behavior and his trauma more than any other person. And so I have been able to, I serve nature schools from the ground up. I've been there, done that, and I could not be more thrilled to serve nature schools and be here with you, Claudine.
Awesome. Fantastic. And you know what? I just want to like highlight a few things that you said that I think are really important. Like the vision from the start, and how a lot of people might start a program, whether it's a play group or a school or whatever version of outdoor education and nature education that you're doing, is that that vision from the start comes from our heart. And like that's where we want to go. But when you're starting these things, you're not really thinking about all of the logistics and the admin that go into that, and all of the other parts that are kind of swirling around and can cloud that vision. And I love that you said you help founders get back to that vision and that space that sparked what they were creating in the first place. And I think that's something that both of us do in helping others, because I do help coach founders also in just helping the back end of their business be efficient, and just helping founders and directors like just get through that part so they can focus on what their vision is and really being there for the kids, right? And like you said, the behavior starts from us. And if
Mhm.
we're all twisted up in all the admin and we're struggling with our own, that's going to be transferred on. So I just wanted to point that out because I think that's such an amazing point to bring up, is that vision from the start of where you started. Whether you're a parent and you're like, I want my kid outdoors and I'm just going to find other people to do it, or you're trying to start a full-on school, or you're doing an enrichment program, whatever it is you're doing to get kids outdoors, holding on to that vision is important, and coming back to it. Because I'll tell you, I mean, I've been doing this for over a decade, and I can tell you over the last few years, as we've been building things with Outdoor Play Connection, there are those moments where it's like, all right, I got to reground myself. right? So that I can bring the best version of me. And that's why I think we've crossed paths so many times because you really put wonderful words to the things that I do. And I think that's so beautiful for you to be able to do that. For the adults in this world who are trying to bring nature back into kids' lives. And then I just want to touch on that story you said about the ladybug. It's such a great story, and just talking about how much we can learn from the kids when we take that moment to observe. And you said that very specifically, like we observed. And if you didn't allow them to have that inquiry, you would have never might have never gotten to the scent of space. Is that what you said?
Yeah, yep,
Yeah.
they questioned if space had a smell. And guess what? We went to the research and it, according to astronauts, it does. If I didn't say that already, so now the kids know. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so
exactly.
like
So sorry.
allowing that space, and you really do um you really do explain it so well for educators and for adults. I'd like to say adults, right? Just to be able to
Yep.
connect to that, because it's not
Yeah,
just educators. I know there's
right.
parents out there who, you might not be looking to start a forest school or a nature school, and that's fine. We're here for you too, because we think just getting out in nature and having these skills can really enhance your experience with your kids out in nature. And it's not going to just support their development. We're talking about your experience with your kids and how you're going to experience it with them. And I really just, I know you're here for that reason too, because we've both had those. I get excited. I can feel the excitement now. We've both had those experiences with our own kids and with other kids, and we want that for others. And so we both come to you from a place where we want to give this to others, and we want to share our knowledge, and we want to bring other resources to you so that you can have those experiences with your kids. So now that you kind of know a little bit about us and why we're here, let's just talk about the book that's kind of inspired us a bit to get started on this conversation together. Because I know we've connected many times before, but it's The Nature-Based Early Childhood Education by Monica Waddell Lubinsky. It is just released from when we're recording this. I'll put the book and a link to the book in the show notes so you can easily find it. But this book brought Megan and I together because we were excited about it. And we thought it would be a great way for us to kind of springboard what we do to help you apply anything you find in this book. And just to start off and make it clear for everybody, we do not benefit in any way in promoting this book, right? We are completely separated from the book and any monetary aspects of it. We are literally here to say this book is going to help you, and we want to help you implement things in this book. And we're going to share a little bit about why and how we know Monica and stuff like that. But just putting that up front, like we are literally just here to share an amazing book with you and our knowledge on how you can implement it. So, why did this book inspire you, Monica, Megan? Like when you saw that Monica was putting out this book, let's talk a little bit about that.
I mean, honestly, I think you and I have, like you said, crossed paths so many times. We've talked about ways to get together and share our knowledge with the world. And then, um, life gets busy and it never really happened because we've been talking for years. And
Yes.
so, um, when I saw that Monica was putting out a book, I was like, and we've both been through Monica's program. So we're bound or tied or connected in that way. And I was like, what if we kind of did a book study type thing where we honor Monica because she has trained us in a beautiful way, and we get to honor Monica. We get to use her, her knowledge and her organizational skills in this way, in this, so that we can kind of like you said, then we can springboard how that how we can help you either apply or implement or think about it in a different way, or deepen the understanding. And so, yeah, um, that's kind of what's coming to me with that question.
Yeah, I love that. And um, it's great that you mentioned like we both took the level one training with Anby, and we back then it was not called Anby, but so that was one way that we connected. I think we found each other online years ago, and this conversation we've been having. Personally, I've gone through their level one, which is their nature-based education for educators program, level two, which is geared towards like directors if you're starting a program, and then their level three, which is kind of for leadership, where we focus a little bit more about how to support others in the programs. So I've done all three of those programs, and I've also ran some workshops with them where I did it like how to get started with your program. Uh, I've done some webinars with them, and I've also gone to a few of their other trainings. And really, any time that I go to these trainings, I just love just meeting other people that are doing what we're doing, and they're just so wholesome and directed towards the people who are there, and you get so much out of being together and connected. I just love the way she brings people together, and she really just has this knack of, like you said, her organizational skills and just bringing things to the forefront to like let you focus on it, right? Um,
And it's very sequential too. It just makes sense the way
mhm.
this is laid out. So
Yeah.
it's a logical way for us to kind of talk about it and honor her and then, yeah, deepen that connection. So
Yeah, and she just does so much for the community and helping nature-based education to get known and just people to understand it better. And I think that's really important as we're connecting back to nature, which is so important in our society now. You and I were talking and saying like how this is not a new concept. Like being
no.
out in nature is not a new thing. This has been around for a very, very long time, way before all of our lifetimes. But it's kind of coming back to where we like need to reconnect to it. It's not the norm, right? And there's this big movement where there are more nature schools coming up and people are trying to reconnect. And I like to say we're trying to balance screen time with green time, right? We're not going to get rid of the screens. That's not realistic in our world today. But we can balance it and figuring that out. And I think this book really does help people step into the foundations. And I do love also about how she does this book will not only talk to people who are just trying to create a program. Like if you're trying to do a program, this book is great for you. But if you're a parent who wants to get outdoors with your kid and you want to understand nature-based education and you want to do something for your kid, this book is great for you. If you want to look into nature-based programs, right? You're looking for things for your kids and you want to understand it a little bit more before you choose a program, this is a great book for you. So I just love that it speaks to so many different kinds of people.
Can I add two more kudos
Please.
to that? If you're a founder with an already established school and you want to kind of elevate in all the ways, whether it's behavior or the logistics, this book is great, as well as um, if you're an educator and you kind of want to step away from, the four walls and kind of, if you're interested in nature-based education, this book is a great, to help your confidence, really
Mm.
being able to learn about child-directed that approach. This book is great for you too. So it's really great for everybody
Yeah,
who
and
has
Monica's
interest in
been doing,
children or nature.
yes, and Monica's been doing this for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And so her knowledge and just her ability to share it is just phenomenal. And she really does connect people. And I think this book is just a really great foundation. So now that you kind of have an idea of like who we are, what we're doing here, what we're talking about. We really just, I've met Monica in person multiple times. She's just a wonderful, wonderful person. Just working with her, I've been in her trainings, but I've also worked with her. I just want to let you all know, like, she's a person. I've met her, and I think she's really a wonderful person trying to share her knowledge. And we want to help bring that knowledge to all of you too, and just help you digest it a bit. So that's what we're going to do is we're going to go through this entire book, um, and you can pop in and listen to each chapter and take your time to get through it all. But we want to basically share our knowledge about these chapters and talk a little bit about how it can help you. And like I said, we're going to make sure we're not just focused on people who already have programs, who are making programs. We want this to be for adults who are interested in nature-based education in any kind of way, because we find that both Megan and I, if we can share our knowledge and bring this to you, that will help more kids get outdoors. And I know that's my goal. When I first started, I said, "Oh, if I could just get 100 kids outdoors in a month," and that was my goal. And I was like, just more kids outdoors. And I've surpassed that already. And now I'm looking like, how can I help other people get hundreds of kids outdoors? And I know Megan has that same vision too, and how we just want to help you succeed in getting kids outdoors and enjoying nature. And in return, hopefully some adults are out there in nature too, because it is so good for us. I don't want us to forget about ourselves. So we talked a bit about the book and the design, which is great. Um, we talked about how we're going to use the book for conversations. Megan, do you want to add anything
Yeah.
about like your vision on just like how we want to use this book for our conversations, just so our listeners can get a sense of like what to expect?
Yes. So you mentioned that we're gonna do the whole book, but not today. Today we're just gonna talk about the introduction, and then the next time that Claudine and I meet, we're just gonna go chapter by chapter by chapter. That's gonna give our audience time to get the book and kind of go along with us on this journey. That way we can, you can have direct access to us to answer questions or, just be in connection to, expand our learning and our commitment to nature and kiddos. So yeah, we're just doing a chapter a week, or sorry, a chapter a time that Monica and I meet. Oh my gosh, you've called me Monica, I've called you Monica. Yeah, Claudine and I meet, and we will just use this book and the pieces that we find the most beautiful out of all of it as a opportunity to bring the conversation deeper and invitations to you to expand your own knowledge and commitment to kiddos in nature.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say too, if we're talking about something and you have questions about it, like reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We would love to spark those conversations if you have questions. Like that's what we're here for. We're hoping that we're going to touch on all of them, but please share questions because then we can always address them in the next time that
Oh,
we're
I love
getting together. Because I know Megan and I really are dedicated to staying here and connecting with others and just helping bring nature-based education out there. And I think we both have so much to offer that complement each other. And so I'm really excited about us partnering in this and just bringing this to other people and sharing that. So great. Let's dive in. Um, let's dive in. We actually decided when we were talking about where to get started is to go into the introduction. I felt when I first opened this book, I loved how easy it was to navigate. Number one, in like in the very beginning, you're seeing like what to expect in the chapters, but the introduction has some really good meat in it, and we decided that we wanted to start there instead of chapter one. Because you're going to learn a little bit about Monica. There's a great forward in here. There's an introduction about her, but then she goes into the 7 principles of nature-based early childhood education, which is right in the introduction. Can't miss it. I love that it's like bold print and like, by the way, don't skip over this. So there's 7 points here that we wanted to get started on and we want to talk about. It'll give you a sense of kind of what we're going to do over the next few sessions as we're talking about this book. But number one, the 7 principles of nature-based early childhood education is nature. I mean, what a great place to start, right? And I like that it's really featured in the curriculum, right? So, like, nature is the focal point. That's what it's talking about here. And they're saying programs for children ages birth to 8 years old. And I'll tell you that I will help us expand beyond 8 because I work with children up to teen. And I truly believe they need time outdoors too. So, in our conversations, I will be bringing that to the forefront also and just saying, hey, it's not just elementary school kids that need this time. And how can you expand that to the older ages? How can we bring this to the middle school and tweens and teens to get them outdoors? So what do you want to add about the nature part of this principle?
Um, what's coming to me is in the work that I do, and you know, is our modeling. You know, we really, that's why I love working with adults because when we look at our own modeling, then the children are more able to kind of receive what we're doing, what we're asking them to do. And so, yeah, that's just what's coming to me about this. And I'll share too, well, I think that that's good enough for now.
Okay. I think one thing I want to add is the fact that nature, when you think about nature-based education, I think it's very easy to think that, are children just in nature or are children learning about nature? Are they learning with nature? Right? So there's a lot of different ways to think about this. Like some people just like, oh, they're just outside. But it's more than that. It's that they're not just outside. They're surrounded by nature. They're, inspired by nature. They're seeing, like you said, with the ladybug, right? That ladybug led to education of space, right? So I bring us back. That was such a great story. Because nature-based education is literally that. It's the children are learning in and about and with nature. It's that whole encompassing part of how it is the foundation in the forefront. Um, and then the next principle is the direct experiences that with nature. It says natural materials and outdoor environments take place in every season in all kinds of weather, which I love. Every season in all kinds of weather, which my programs are 100% outdoors. We do not have a building, so to speak, and we're in all weather, all season. We meet all year round. So people often ask about that, and I'm like, yeah, we do, and it builds, you know, resiliency. It builds the ability to, be outside when it's not only sunny outside. Kids don't care about the rain. They love the puddles. They really don't. So I think it's an important thing to think about is that you're out in every season and you're out in all kinds of weather and that you can. It empowers them to do things, to do hard things. I am not saying it is easy to go out in a cold, rainy day. It is not. That is probably one of the harder days that we have. And it's not easy to go out on a big snowy day, right? Like we're going to be dealing with how many layers and all the layers on and all the layers off. It literally takes you longer to get kids ready and back in the house than the time they spend outside sometimes. But I think it's still an important experience.
Um, okay, so full transparency, I hate the cold. And who doesn't? Who doesn't? And so I, as my daughter is getting older, she's 12 now. She goes to a beautiful Waldorf school. We've homeschooled before, we'll be homeschooling again. And as she's getting older, I'm actually looking for more ways to connect with her on her terms in
Hmm.
really meaningful ways because
Hmm.
that's just something that I know that's needed at this time and just to deepen our connection. And so I'm talking with her teacher about how I can support her class getting their beyond the fence time more often. And winter's coming. I'm in Colorado, and I know you're New York. Oh,
I'm
New
in
York,
New Jersey.
New Jersey. Okay. Um, yeah, winters are cold there too. Anyways, I love this opportunity to reflect for myself. I'm not thrilled about going out with them. Um, and I'm going to do it anyways because that's what she needs. And it's frankly what I need. I don't have a school anymore that I support schools, right, with the behavior piece, but I'm excited to put on my warm boots, layer up and really love her in this way that she needs because their nature is the perfect elixir for connection, for stimulation, for calming. Like there is no better setting for that. There's no better environment. Um, and so I love the opportunity to look at our own possible hypocrisies and where
Hmm.
we can shift our modeling. Because I sure could be like, God, I hate this and
Right.
it's too cold. And some of the kids are going to struggle with it. So I want to be vulnerable with them and be like, yeah, it's cold and let's go build the fire anyways. Um, so I invite us all to just kind of consider that, our
Hmm.
kids need us to do hard things, uncomfortable things with
Yep.
them and for them and for
Yes.
ourselves. You know,
Yes.
when we're feeling agitated and anxious, we're supposed to go outside in all weathers, get that sun in our eyes, and just let that be the thing that kind of heals us in that moment. So I don't love the cold, but I'm doing it anyways. And no one likes the cold. And kids are so resilient when an adult in the environment doesn't limit them
Yes.
and or make it unfun, our attitude about it. So
Yeah. And
attitude shift. And then what do you think? And then I want to come back to layers.
yes, so I think I just wanted to touch on like who doesn't love the cold. I think nobody loves to be cold.
Okay.
I love winter. My kids and I find it some of the most magical times. They get so excited about winter. But we dress for it. We're warm in winter. So I think when you're comfortable, you can experience anything. in a positive way. But you have to be comfortable, right? Whether if it's cold and rainy and you're wet and cold, you're not going to be comfortable. You're not going to have a positive experience. If it is freezing out and you're not dressed properly and you're cold, you're not going to have a good experience. And that goes for adults too. So we talk to parents in our parent-child classes or just parents who come to classes, and I'm like, you matter too. We're here to help you, like layers and gear, and it's like 50% of what I do. And we have a whole gear library that I've been collecting donations for, so families have what they need, and like the gear isn't the holdup, right? We don't want any of these barriers there. Where and then they get the gear and they're in, they're like, I can't believe I'm doing this, and I'm out with my kid, and it's like, 25 degrees and there's snow on the ground. And it is the most magical thing to be in the forest with fresh snow, with like only animal tracks, and you're tracking a fox or you're tracking a chipmunk. And the quiet and the sound in the winter is just magical
Mhm.
to experience. And we all know that kids love snow. And if you don't have snow and you just have the cold, there's ways to have fun with ice, and just to be in that space. And when you start sharing that joy and sharing the possibilities, when you are comfortable,
Mhm.
like you said, connection is opened, and new experiences can happen. So you had a question about layers, so you want to talk? I'm happy to talk about layers.
That what I love about um where I'm going to go with this, and then you can expand upon it, of course, is um that can be a barrier, right? All the
Hmm.
layers, especially if it's an early childhood education program that has 10 kids and just the layering takes 20, 30 minutes. But what I want to invite us all to consider here is how much education is being learned right there. That is
Hmm.
part of the process. Helping the kiddos, have they're a part of their learning, and they're developing so much resilience and grit, and they're excited, they're very motivated to get out, you know and play
Yes.
in that snow and whatever the weather is. And if we just embrace the process of layers and just know that they're learning so much right there, and they're
Yes.
they're developing their muscles when they're pulling on those boots. They're developing that delayed gratification when a teacher is helping this kid before they get to you, to this kid. And there's don't let the layers be the barrier, because that's as essential as anything else.
Yeah, and
um
there's going to be sensory challenges. There's so many different ways to layer, and that's something that I help parents with. Um, and you're absolutely right. The learning starts from the moment you decide you're going outside. Like the goal is to be out there, right? But like you said, there's that drive to be out in the snow or to be out. Maybe they're not driven to go out in the cold, but when you show, like, I'm excited to do
yes.
this and we can do it, and this is how, and I'm going to help you through the challenges. Every single one of my children, all three of them, have had challenges with things being bunchy. That is the word. That is the universal word for uncomfortable, bunchy, right? My sleeve is bunchy. My pants are bunchy. Everything's bunchy. And and it's like, I know it's bunchy, but it's important that I stay calm and be like, I hear it's
Mhm.
bunchy and we're gonna fix it, right? We're gonna get there. And showing them that they can feel that uncomfortableness, but it can be resolved and they can still achieve what they're trying to do. So
Mhm.
yes, it's frustrating. I don't want to like downplay it. Like, especially I have moms who have like four kids, and it's like, how do I do that when they're all so little? And it's like, yeah, just go into it with the mindset that it might take you 30 to 45 minutes to get to the point where you're stepping outside. If you have that expectation, then your frustration level is not going to go up as fast, because you're going into it seeing the learning process is the gear. The learning process is stepping outside. If we're outside for 10 minutes and we come back and we all have hot cocoa and marshmallows or what hot tea or whatever thing you're going to have that's going to warm you up inside, I'm telling you, your kids are going to remember the muffin or the hot cocoa or the tea that they have with you. They're not going to remember the frustration of the clothes. I can tell you that.
Ah,
And I can tell you that because my kids are 13 and 15, my older girls, and the moment it got cold out, the moment it was in the low 50s, they were downstairs getting ready to go into the forest, and they made the oatmeal. They made the hot cocoa. They said, "It's oatmeal weather, Mom. We make oatmeal lasagna. It's a layer of oatmeal, chocolate chips, layer of oatmeal, chocolate chips, layer of oatmeal."
mhm.
And that's what they eat in the forest. And they made it. They felt the temperature get to a place that
Oh,
they remembered it's hot cocoa and oatmeal time. They're not remembering being a toddler and struggling and me taking an hour of time to get them outside and spending the time early in the morning making that oatmeal and layering it up and packing it for them. They, our senses hold memories. And I'm gonna like try not to cry now because it was so amazing to me. It was so validating to me that all of those years that I did that, my daughters did it for their brother, right? And they're like, we need to have hot cocoa and oatmeal. It's that, they're like, Mom, it's that weather. So the fact that they felt the temperature change, they made their oatmeal, they made their hot cocoa, they had the marshmallows, and they were ready for that experience, right? And that experience at 13 and 15, let me tell you, all of that was taken care of in like 10, 15 minutes. But in the past, it was, hours of prep for me and making sure that they were comfortable and nothing was bunchy and they were outside. So I talk to that parent that has the toddler now or has the young four kids, everyone's under 5 years old, and you're struggling with the gear and you're trying to get outside and it's cold and it's hard. I'm telling you, there is a future where your child will remember this just the way mine did. And they got the oatmeal and hot cocoa out because they remember that they were outside and it was fun. So I kind of dove into that a little deep, but um, I
I
think
think that's
that's,
perfect. And I
yeah, I
think that's
think
what we're
that's,
doing here is taking
yeah,
this. I have something to add too.
great.
As I work with schools, for the educator part, I just want to invite educators, especially if you think you've got boxes to check, that can really hinder and the process of getting outdoors because you're like, gosh, I gotta, all these standards I've got to try and but guess what? Every standard can be pulled in to the process of layering up.
Hmm.
And I just want you to give yourself permission to just be present in that process. Don't let standards ever come before children. Keep our allegiance to children and what they need in the moment. The standards will come if school cares about that piece at all. I just want to, you know, in our rush to check the boxes, we miss the most important stuff sometimes. And really just this is it. This is the good stuff. Um,
I mean, getting your gloves on is helping the muscles in the hands and their
exactly.
coordination, right? Which then leads into writing and all these other
Exactly.
things. So, yeah, like I love that you're bringing this up for the educators because there is a connection to all of it.
It
All of
is.
it. Gloves, the
Development.
boots, the layers. Yeah.
Every domain of development is being
Hmm.
touched on with the layering up process. Every standard can be pulled in. It's about us just being able to be present and our need for that, the goal that we're going for out there that we just got to pull it back to centeredness to the kids in front of us and let that be our guide, I think.
And we haven't even been outside yet.
Yeah. What's coming to me is like tacking up a horse, right? A
Mm,
child that's learning to tack up a horse, put the bridle on, the saddle on, and the cinch, and all of that stuff before the trail ride is
yes.
just as essential as the trail ride.
Yes.
Learning to keep that animal calm and move slowly and respect. And
Mhm.
that's what I invite, it's all part of the journey and the process. And it's about us, you know, I was on a podcast yesterday and we just kind of dove into our need for control, an
Mhm.
adult's need for control.
Mhm.
And so what I invite us to is control ourselves, find that need for control in ourselves, and we will check that box for us. Um, Control ourself, our demeanor, our presentation with our patience. We can even tell, our modeling. For me, it always comes back, to modeling. Kids can sense that, yeah, we're a little frustrated too. Like it kind of sucks. We're doing this for 20, 30 minutes. But when they see us preserve, our emotions and our behavior, it helps them do the same thing.
Mhm.
And then, we can co-regulate with them. We can do all the really important stuff in this kind of frustrating, this yellow zone, as I would call it. And so, okay, yeah, that's what I really wanted to
I
come
love
back
it.
to.
I love it. I mean, this is just to go to shows to why we're doing this, right?
Yeah,
Like we've talked about nature and direct experiences. We've talked about the two of seven principles, and the two of us have already figured out how we can like deep dive into them 5 million different ways. And I just love that we're really just showing like why all of this really matters and what we have to share about it. And like I said, like we're literally talking about putting on layers. We haven't even talked about the experience outside, right?
exactly.
But yeah, I love that we're like really embracing the fact that that direct experience in every season in all weather is so important, right?
Yep.
All right, so let's move on to learning is child directed, right? So that's principle number three, learning is child directed. Um, I love talking about this because I know some people hear it all the time. It's like a very common phrase and words to use, but I do want to talk about it a little bit in the sense of what does that mean, right? So it can be misunderstood in like the child just doing what they want and the child just does, right? And like, well, how does the guide or the teacher be involved? Personally, our group, we call each other ourselves guides instead of teachers because we truly believe we are there to guide children through their experience. We're there to watch and observe and learn and help them through their journey, right? So we consider ourselves guides. So it's saying that, you know, playful, emergent outdoor experience, the inquiry and observation and creative problem solving are key words that I wanted to us to talk about because we talked about that with your story with your ladybug. That was such a great story to start with because it talks about the inquiry and the observation, right? And then like that all led to something that's completely outside of the environment you were in. So letting the child kind of direct is also how I've learned so much of what I know. People will say, "Well, how do you know all of this?" My degree is in engineering and applied math and statistics. That is my degree. Okay, I have an engineering degree in applied math and statistics. Um, you know, I went to school as going to be a teacher. I went on a different path. I worked in corporate America, had kids, and now I teach kids in the forest, right? Well, you know, I just really took the time to observe and listen to children. And when they ask a question and I don't know the answer, I tell them that. And I think it's important for children to know that we don't know everything.
Mhm.
And that we can show them how to get the information. So sometimes we'll have guides with us, like little field guides, or we'll have an actual book because we try to have like reference books with us according to the seasons. And if we can't find, I'll say, you know what? I'm going to go figure that out. And next time I see you, we'll talk about it more. So I think it's important that we share our knowledge with them, you know, when they ask about a plant, and I do know I still share it in a way that encourages their curiosity. You know, before I tell them that it's poison ivy, I can say, well, what shapes do you see? What colors do you see? How is it different from other things that you see, right? And we're talking about the observation and how they can describe it and think of like all of the cognitive and language skills that they're doing just in that process before I explain how to identify poison ivy using symmetry, which is mathematical. It is hands down the best way to identify poison ivy through symmetry. So really focusing on child directed through their inquiries and you helping them observe, but being an observer yourself. And I know you can talk about this a bit too, and just like how, you know, what I'm talking about is kind of like how I work with the kids and how, you know, I'm following. I always like to say I might be leading a hike, but I'm following the children even though I'm in front, you know, and it looks like they're following me. I'm always listening and I'm pausing when I'm hearing the kind of interesting things that they're looking at. But you know, as an educator, as a parent, or as an adult that's with kids, it's, you know, how do you stay in the presence and to be an observer, right? And I'm sure you could talk a bit about that and like how we can participate and how we can take care of ourselves to be that person, to be the observer, and to support this concept.
Yeah, two pieces that jotted down here as you were talking that I can tap into is when kiddos learning that is child led, right? What that means is a whole body experience. Their learning is meaningful. We're not sitting them down, imparting all of our wisdom onto them and hoping they remember the facts that we just shared. They really are the drivers of their own curiosities and their own discoveries, and they're going to remember it better than us forcing them to, because they're not going to, because we're only going to know the important pieces that we're told to tell them. But they're going to remember the intricacies and the nuances that are meaningful to them. And I think it was Maria Montessori that said, what a child cannot hold in their heart, they can't hold in their head what they can't hold in their hands is Do you know of that?
I don't know the exact quote off the top of my head, but
Okay, well,
I
someone
love
correct
that.
me if that's Maria or someone else's. But I believe that if we want something to be held in a child's brain, they need to hold it in their hands and in their heart first. And that is child-led learning. Um, and that is that whole body experience. I have a motto, I have lots of mottos, but the one that's coming up right now is more education with kids and not to them. And that
Hmm.
us
Hmm.
just kind of stepping back or leading from the front, like, on the hike, but listening and knowing when to stop and wait and all that stuff. We're not making it about us, we're making it about them. We're not making it about our needs, our checklists, we're really keeping it about the kiddos. The other thing that I have found that can be helpful for adults in really finding the power of the pause.
Hmm.
Again, adults especially, we have this incessant need to be doing something and really observing, and that feeling of doing nothing can be really, really difficult. It's a skill
Yes.
to be developed. What
Yes.
I can invite a tool that we can add in here. You're gonna get lots of tools through this whole process of with Claudine and I, but one tool we can add in here is you as the adult trying to be stepping into that role of the observer, kind of go through the five senses of what that child might be hearing and seeing and touching and smelling. And you're just thinking about this. It's just giving you something to do while you wait. You're silently
Hmm.
doing this. And as as your essence is noticing their essence, they might look at you and invite you in. They might not. They might be so engrossed that, and that's either one is great, but just giving you something to do in that moment when you're pausing and waiting. So hopefully you find that helpful, because they are learning. Anytime someone says, they're just playing. I'm sorry, you
Hmm.
cannot separate learning from play. It cannot happen. You can
Yeah.
separate academics from play. You
Hmm.
can separate academics from learning, but you
Hmm.
cannot separate learning from play or learning from, child-led experiences. So just find peace in that. They are learning. And if you can notice what their five senses are doing, maybe the eight senses, if we can talk, I'm sure that we'll explore those another day. But anyways, I just want to give that tool.
I love this. And I love that you're giving something for the adult to do because I know that waiting it can be hard, really hard to sit and wait. Like, and these kids are so busy and you're just like, especially if any like I'm ADHD, so like sometimes waiting's really hard for me because my brain's going so fast. So I really do have to connect with what they're doing, and it's such a great way to explain it is to really connect and seeing what their senses. It really just puts a name on what to do. I'd love to give an example really quick on how this can apply to older children because recently we had an experience with my 13-year-old and, the kids were creating this whole village in the leaves. Like they were pushing the leaves out. They made a museum. They made a restaurant. They had a cell phone store. They had an art exhibit. They had all of these things that they created, a whole village in our classroom space. And my daughter was just really kind of struggling with how to connect with the kids that she usually plays with. She was just struggling with being there. And I turn around and we have little stations out that we put out. We have like an art station, we have a discovery station. And she took out the pulleys and she found the paracord and she was spending a lot of time figuring out how to get this pulley up over the branch, right? She's 13. And I know a lot of people think like when they're older, that this doesn't apply, but she's doing what she did and what I'm going to explain you could see other ages doing this, maybe not at this caliber because she's older, of course, and that's kind of how this transfers.
Right.
And as they grow, their experiments grow with them, right? She's been doing this since she was born, practically, since she could sit up. She's been in the forest with us. And so she's trying to get the rope over and she's got the pulley on there and she's got it down. And I turn around because I'm obviously also observing other kids. I turn around after some time and she had the pulley and I saw her, she was frustrated with it. She was struggling with what she wanted to do. I turned around and she made a swing. So the pulley, she put another log onto it and she created a whole swing with the paracord she had. And then, because at one point she came over and said, "Can I have some twine?" And I'm like, "Sure." So she had twine. She took sticks and she made. I'm gonna have to put a sticker. I'm gonna have to put a picture of this.
Mhm.
But because it's incredible, she made a person. sitting on a swing. So she took the sticks and she got one that like looked like a head and she used the twine, she made arms and she made legs so the person was sitting on the branch and the swing and she was swinging. She's like, "Mom, look." And she's swinging it. And like so much went into this. This is like an hour of work that went into this. And she was showing me how the pulley allows, the swing to move up and down and how she secured it, right? So the pulley allowed her to work on it and then she secured it on another tree. And then she secured this stick person onto the swing so it wouldn't come off, right? And she's swinging. And like it was just an incredible project that she did. There is engineering involved in there, right? Like getting it all to work together, the forces, and just like how do you take your idea in your head and like make it something work? How do you go from I want to make a pulley system to that's not working, I'm going to make a swing, right? So she had to go through the frustration and she had to go through this is not working to get to a place where she created something amazing. And this helped her process the challenge of being able to connect in the other part of the group, and really grounded her. And I saw the shift and the change in her temperament and her body language, just like the joy that was coming out of her from the frustration when she started, and just the whole process. And I think it's important to know like this is a 13-year-old that got to kind of heal and create in nature, in a way that was right for her, and just allowing her to have that directive. I did not get involved. I didn't help her fix the pulley system. I saw the frustration and the challenge, but I did not say, let's do it this way. It will work better this way, right? I instead allowed her to figure out that it wasn't working. And she could have chosen to figure it out. She could have asked me. And if she asked me, I would have walked her through it and talked to her about it and let her figure it out with me. I wouldn't have just said, this is the way you do it. But she decided to go a completely different way and just created this amazing swing and a whole person out of sticks. It was just incredible. And I can't wait to share the picture with you.
Yes. All right. Yes. Let's talk about this from the behavior perspective.
Mind you, there's kids like ages 4 through, 12 creating a whole village out of like trees. Like there were pathways and like, so that's also going on at the same time. So it's like the same concept of child-directed learning is happening in all ages in the same space in different ways.
Oh my gosh. And so, just so I have a clear picture, it wasn't that she went off and did her own thing. She was still trying to contribute to this whole idea of the group, of this village and all of this.
She was still in the village. Like
Okay.
she was just like in her own space.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And even if she had gone off, like totally fine. What I want everyone to really, if you're not already cued into this, is she wasn't rescued from that discomfort of, not only am I feeling maybe a little excluded, I'm just feeling like I'm not being listened to or whatever. Like the adult in the room, nope, not the room, the adult in the environment trusted not only herself, so you as mom and teacher, educator trusted yourself to just stay back and trust her that she's got this. And when we do that, our kids develop trust in themselves that they can do things and trust in us that we got their back when necessary. They're
Yep.
not,
My role was supplies. When she
yeah,
needed scissors, I got scissors. When she needed twine, I got twine.
exactly.
Yep.
And so she had you for that necessary support, but it is so easy for an adult to jump in and fix, jump in and rescue. And
Mhm.
when we do that, we chop the legs off of the learning and all the opportunities that would have come, the grit, the resilience, the engineering, the figuring it out, that just the, oh, it's not working. Okay, what else can work? Like that's the goal of education. That's
Right.
it right
Yeah.
there. And then with that, comes self-trust. Like, oh, I can, when I'm feeling this way, I can do something and move on, move through it.
Hmm.
And then finding that joy at the end. So I always come back to lots of things, and joy is one of them too. She's connected with herself. I'm sure the kids thought it was super cool. And
Hmm.
she didn't even need them to think it was super cool. She didn't need you to think it was super cool. She thought it was super cool.
The joy in her voice when she said, "Mom, come look," right? And like I was observing, I was there, I was present, but she didn't know I was like watching. I didn't want her to know she was like being watched. There's a difference between observing and watching, right? I saw what was going on, but then she still had that ability to come to me and say, "Look, look, look what I did." And like that excitement and that joy and that she accomplished it and then showing me and then having like other kids see it and being like, "Wow." And like the curiosity on their faces. This is multi-age learning here where like the older kids create things that then bring things out in the younger kids. The whole experience is just like, I
This
could not have created that for them. And this is where the child-directed learning is so important
Yes.
because that is our place to be there in that space and allowing them to have the inquiry and the observation, going from the looking at the ladybug to creating a swing.
And this is why I think you and I are both so passionate about the nature-based education, is because this could not have happened in a standard classroom. You
Correct.
cannot take a pulley out and make a swing or what, you can't do that. There's not, I mean, just the reverberation of the lights and the walls and or the
Mhm.
sound, like not only is just the space not set up for it, but the environment just doesn't allow for these types of things. And
Yeah.
if we want kiddos to have this beautiful opportunity and think and develop in this really beautiful way, it has to be outside. That's there is no other alternative. So
Mhm.
I love that story. I'm sure we'll come back to the ladybug story and that story a
I
lot.
know. There's so many stories.
Yep.
I love bringing like real stories so people can like hear how this is implied and like how it's experienced, you know?
I
And I love
think
that we can both offer that.
I think just really before we move on, this kid, your kiddo's 13.
Yes.
Mine's almost 13. Anyways, kiddos aren't too old to do this.
No.
I think I want to, my daughter's 12th birthday, her and her 7 friends were at our pond catching tadpoles. They
Yep.
want to do this.
Yep.
It is it is us and our limitations I don't know, that limits them. They want to be outside
I do. Yeah.
doing hard, messy things. And we just need to step back, control ourselves, find that control in ourselves, and let the beauty begin.
Let them.
Let the
Let them.
learning,
Let
yes.
the teens be in the
And that,
mud. They can be in the mud. Teenagers can play in the mud.
they
The
want
teens
to.
in my program are so into the mud kitchen. Mud kitchens are not just for toddlers. They
Yes.
are, like, I have had cakes created that look like real cake when you cut into them. Like,
No.
if you didn't know we were sitting in the forest with a ton of mud and clay, I mean, she put it on like ganache and they decorate it, you know, and then they cut it. It looks like it's chocolate cake. They can do this and they need it, and it's so important. And I could argue too that adults need it too. Like,
Right.
we
I
do,
know. We
but
do.
we won't digress that far yet.
No, we won't take us that far. All right, what's next?
So children freely making choices and taking risks, which I think we've talked a little bit about the choice aspect of it, in that they're respected as capable learners, right? So we're trusting them in that child-directed aspect of things, and giving them the time, space, and permission for them to make their independent decisions. Like so, like I let her decide what she was doing. I didn't tell her she had to finish the pulley. Right. I didn't say go make a swing. Right. So she got to make those decisions on her own. Everybody made decisions on what they created. That's why there was like a diner and the swing and the art museum, which the kids sat at the art station and made art. They drew guides, they drew creatures, like right. Um, so much came out of this 2 hour project. So then we're talking about more about also empowering them and taking risk taking, and something in nature-based education is talked about all the time. In our classes, we're always talking about risks versus hazards. They are different. And I think when people hear risk, they think hazard, right? Because they think of risk taking is a hazard, and it's not. So like we'll talk about like a hazard is something we can't control. Right? A risk is something we're choosing to do and be part of. And you yourself know where you can go with that, right? And we have to trust our children to know that too, because that it's so important for them to learn this as children, because that's going to be carried with them as adults for them to trust themselves to make these decisions, especially when they're not an easy decision. And maybe they need to do something a little uncomfortable to get to something that they really want to do. This stuff really does transfer as they develop and grow into adults, and giving them the ability to feel trusted that they can make the choice to climb that log, to climb that rock, is so important.
Um, yeah, I think the key word here is trust. And I circled the word time and space. That's how this is developed when the kids are the agenda and not what we were told they should be
Mhm.
doing. Um, but when we talk about risks, what's coming to me is, and I never really thought about this before this moment, is there's inside risks and outside risks, and that's inside of the essence of the kiddo or and adults. So your daughter making that swing, she took a lot of inside risks. That
Mm,
might not work. I might, um, someone might say it's stupid. My doll, the person might, she's taking risks. She's trying, anytime we try new things, we're taking risks. So that's that
yes.
inside risk that and that competency and self-trust that she's developing. That wouldn't have happened if mom rescued. Hello, right? Pull it back to that. But
Yep.
and then the outside risk, right? I mean, if she would have tossed that pulley over and it came and conked her in the head, I mean, that's the
Or
outside
somebody else. Yep.
or someone
Hmm.
else, and then overcoming that, which is again, if mom had rescued, I don't think anyone's going to die from a conked, from getting conked with a pulley.
Right.
When we slash those opportunities, I would say it's not even neutral. There's a lot of negative consequences that come from eliminating those opportunities.
Oh, yes,
But
absolutely.
when we can allow that risk taking and allow, even if someone got bonked, conked, whatever, the learning and the repair that would have come from that, like, wow, that's
Yes.
amazing and powerful and meaningful. Luckily, it doesn't sound like anyone got bonked, and that's great.
Right.
So, still, there was plenty of risk and plenty of positive consequences that came from allowing this process to happen.
There's two things I want to add to that. There's one before they come out of my brain here. Um, One is the fact is in just talking to parents about this and talking about it with adults and like in our programs and how to manage that um, aspect of things where what do you do when you're feeling that they're taking a risk? Because it's honestly like can be really hard to watch a child take a risk that feels too risky for you. And this, I totally understand it. I'm empathetic to it because, my son had a terrible fall when he was 20 months old, 22 months old. He was in the hospital for a few days, and that was traumatizing for both of us. But honestly, it was probably a little more traumatizing for mom, right?
Uh-huh.
I was 3 days out from a surgery myself, and now I'm in the hospital with my child who's, hurt his face. He, after this whole situation, fell another time off of a bleacher. He was totally fine in both scenarios. He was okay, right? He healed. It's just his mouth injury was so bad he couldn't eat, so we had to get IV, right? I thought he would never nurse again. He did. So all of that stayed with me. And so anytime we would be in the forest, he would want to climb. My whole nervous system would react to that, right? But it was my responsibility to figure out what was holding me back from allowing him to trust his body to take the risks he was willing to take to climb, even though I could not handle him climbing. Now, my daughters, I had no problem. They would climb these things. My husband would be like losing his mind because he's like, how could you let them do it? I'm like, they're fine. They do this all the time. Right. Because I had that experience of like seeing it. Right. So, like, when I see all these kiddos climbing and then the parents see it, and I'm like, oh, they do this every week. So, it's important though that I identified what I needed to deal with so that I could be present for him. Now, I'll be completely like full disclosure to everybody in that it was hard for me and
Mhm.
I had to remove myself out of situations. So I would have another guide or I'd have my best friend come in and be like, you watch him climb. I'm going to go over here. I am not going to watch this right now because I can't. If I do, I'm going to be too inclined to get involved. And I noticed that. I I noticed it, and that's hard to do, right? To really notice in yourself, I was like, I'm going to hold him back. And so I'm speaking this story because I want people to hear it in that just because I'm an educator and I'm out there and I'm with kids and I'm helping them assess risk and I believe in all of these principles and all of these things and I do it, that, it still can be hard for me, right? And I'll tell you now, it's always harder with your own kids. Always. And for me to say, to trust somebody else, be like, you be with him. He's going to make the right choices and remove myself out, gave him the opportunity. Let me tell you, the kid climbs. He loves climbing. He is such a climber. And that's because I didn't allow his experience to be held on to him, right?
Mhm.
I didn't allow me to put that experience that he carried with him. He loves climbing, right? He wants to go to the climbing gyms and like do all of that. And it's like, okay, we're bringing me to like what my ability of like handling you climbing. Um, but I never put that on him.
Oh,
Right. And so I think it's important to know that when talking about risks and in dealing with risk taking, that we like to say it's important for them to take and let them take it and give them the time and space. Yes, all of that. But it can be hard. It can be hard, but until we can identify what's within us that might be making it hard, like I'll tell parents like what's holding you back, right? When their kids trying to climb up on the log and they want to hold their hand and I'm like, "Nope, we're not going to hold their hand." They're like, "But," and I'm like, "They'll be okay because their body's going to tell them to get down low if they need and we need to trust them." But it can be hard, right? And I like sharing these stories because I want other people to know that even though we say all these things and we explain all the reasons why they're important, that we still understand that it can be challenging. And we're here to talk through those things too. And I share my own personal experiences because I want people to understand that I too have had those struggles, right? And there were those moments. How did I know I needed to step back? Because there was a day that I stopped him from climbing.
mm,
I work with kids every day that are climbing and doing these things. I never get involved in their climbing. I'm always there just being the person there in case they need like encouragement or there is something that needs to be involved with, but I am always staying out of it. But for my kid, I stopped him. And you know what he
mhm,
said to me?
mm,
He said, "Mom, I got this." And I was like, "Oh." He's like, "Mom, I'm fine." And I was like, that's the moment. I was like, wow, I need to step away. And so that from then, and he was young, right? He was barely 2 when he got hurt, and this is like when he was 3, 4, and I was still struggling with that trauma from that accident that he had. And so that's when I stepped away, and I had to deal with my own,
mhm,
right? Until I was ready to be present with him. And now I can be present with him. My nervous system isn't all fired up and charged and creating reactions that I don't want to have, but
mhm,
I had to take the time for myself to process, to be able
mhm.
to be there for him. And he loves climbing.
I mean, I love that. I love so pulling behavior in. You had to step away because if you had stayed there, you knew you were going to limit him. You're going to build a story for him. You're going to reinforce your own story of him and his incapabilities and the what ifs and all of that stuff. So the thing that you did, and when I think about behavior, I'm always, if we don't want a behavior, we need to replace it. It's really hard to just stop a
Yes.
behavior. So for ourselves and for our kiddos and significant others too. This
Yeah.
works for everybody and everything.
All
If we
humans.
like something, gently, respectfully replace it. Um, with them and for them.
Hmm.
And so you stepped away. And so, and then if stepping away isn't possible, bringing in the five senses, and that lets you just calm your own nervous system. You can tap. There's ways to
Hmm.
calm your nervous system, to trust, exude that trust and feel it for yourself. And then when you go through the five senses or eight senses, you know that they're learning important things. And if you did stop them, yeah, you might eliminate the risk, but you're eliminating a lot of learning opportunities too.
Hmm.
So, I hope
And
that was helpful.
it's harder to rebuild that confidence,
Oh yeah.
to rebuild, right?
You're
He
building
had the
association
confidence. Yeah, he had
and
the
you're
confidence. He came out
yeah.
from his accident. He was fine, right? He fell when he was very
What
young.
I love is yeah, exactly. What I love too is he helped you co-regulate.
Yes.
The mirror neuron system was active
Yep.
and functioning, and his faith in himself, you're
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm going to borrow some of that, buddy,
Yep.
and I'm going to step away.
And the repair he needed was like his injury was to his mouth. So anytime he would fall and hit his mouth, he would get really upset. He wasn't actually hurt, but it was
Mhm,
the reliving of that hurt, right? Like it was really
mhm,
hard for him. And it took us a few years, like where that's where he needed me to
mhm,
help him regulate over that trauma, where like it wasn't the fall. that was in his nervous system, right? The fall was in my nervous system.
Mhm.
What was in his was the hurt to the mouth. And so
Mhm.
I had to support him anytime he fell. And I'm like, I know it hurts. I know it hurts. I was like, but we're okay. And like help him get through it so that he could be like, oh yeah, I am okay. I can hit
Mhm.
my mouth and be okay. So we helped each other through both of those things. And it all comes down to allowing those risks to happen, right? Allowing the child to have that autonomy and ability and confidence to make those choices, right? So like I love how the things we're talking about, we're now on going through number four, they're overlapping. I hope
Oh,
people
yes.
can hear like how they're overlapping with each other.
I
Um,
want to
you want
Yeah, I
to
want
add
to stay
anything
on.
else?
Yes. So I want to stick here one more second. What happens when an injury does happen? Because
Mm,
sometimes that happens. And my daughter actually at her playground at school, she fell off a merry-go-round thing and dislocated her knee. She's still in crutches. And she was in a wheelchair for a minute. And the things that she has learned, the experiences she has gained have been invaluable. And I would wish it happened in no other way because she's the type of kids, as most kids are, when someone's using a wheelchair, it's kind of annoying. You have to wait. When someone it presents differently, it can be frustrating.
hmm.
Accommodations have to be made. Well, why do all the desks move for them? Well, guess what?
Right.
She's in this position now,
Yep.
and she has to ask for help. She has to, and she hates that. I had to like it's not a choice. You have to use a wheelchair for the first couple days and
Yeah.
tears and loathing and I don't want to be seen in a wheelchair and it's embarrassing and
Mm,
gently being with her and she has gained so much appreciation and perspective and that doesn't happen without experience.
yeah.
We can't appreciate things we've never experienced, not really. And so her empathy and compassion for others, because now she gets it to some small degree what others
Yeah.
experience daily. And so when accidents happen, it's there's so much good there too.
Hmm.
So much good there too. And it's for nature schools, it's finding those families that are all in. Because sure, liability is always a risk. And I'm
Of
sure we'll
course.
talk about it that
Yeah.
about that at some point. But it's about educating families all the time, really making sure they're in connection with the community of the school so they feel loved and supported and you've got their back and they've got your back. And you know, accidents are going to happen, and there's so much beauty in those too. There's
Hmm.
so much learning, and I could continue on, but I just want to give that plug. That is, this is probably the most important learning she'll have all year, and I'm all in for it, all
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think once you get past that, the injuries are hard and it's
Oh,
challenging,
the
all
medical
different
bills.
kinds, right?
Oh my
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
but
But
still
like I
worth
love
it.
that you're turning this into like how can we see this as an experience that we can learn from, right? I mean, and that can go straight down to just having a simple need for a band-aid, right? A child
Mhm.
can learn so much just from that. And, if they get a small cut and cleaning that cut and what, like how strong their bodies are to just heal. Like we just grow skin. Like our body will just repair. Like, right? Her bone's just going to everything's just going to repair. Like our bodies are incredible, and then they can feel confident about their bodies, right? Like when you want to feel strong and just be like, we're going to put a band-aid on it to keep it clean. Like band-aids don't fix it. It keeps it
Mhm.
clean so you don't get an infection. Your body's going to fix it, right? Because
Mhm.
you take care of your body, because you get good sleep, because you eat your food, and you're nurturing your body in these ways that it's just going to grow skin and heal, right? And
Mhm.
so I think it's a whole learning experience. It's not just the experience of like, I see this risk and I'm going to take it, I'm going to succeed from it. I like that you're bringing up the fact that like there's going to be moments of frustration, and maybe they don't make the pulley or the swing. Maybe they can't figure that out. And that is a process of learning also when it doesn't go right. When the mud muffins you wanted to make are too liquefied and they all fall apart when you flip it over and class is over.
Mhm.
Can't redo it,
Mhm.
right? So yeah, all of these things are so important. I love it. All right, teachers and facilitators is the
Number
next
5.
principle. We're moving on. So I like that she uses the word guide here.
Mhm.
And like this is like very much of what we do is like we are there to guide their experiences, right? And their opportunities and overlapping with managing risks, right? This providing safety and also to support every child's needs, right? Individualized accommodations, which we kind of talked a little bit about with your daughter's injury. I can add another example in that where, I mentioned that we are an inclusive environment. We work with lots of neurodivergent kiddos. And I have a family that's been with us for 2 years now. He's in his third year. When he first started, he's autistic and he would stay for about 20 minutes and then be ready to leave. Was nonverbal. And now he gets dropped off in our programs and he communicates with us. He takes redirection. Um, and it's just such an amazing thing. But that all happened because I asked the mom, I said, what do you want for him? What is
Mhm.
your goals? What are his goals? How can we support him? Right? We look at the classroom and the individuals, right? And what their needs are. And this child sometimes needs to walk ahead of me, and we walk as a sandwich, right? We have the front and the back caboose, and everybody inside is a sandwich. It's great because the kids get to talk about what kind of sandwiches they like to eat, and some like jelly, and the jelly's oozing out when the kids are going, right? So it's just like a fun way to talk about it. And so he would walk ahead of me, but he would always come back or he would pause, right? We have like this mutual understanding of like he just needs that space to walk with the group. And kids would be at the front and be like, well, why can he walk up front? And his mom was with me when I said this because she was still in the classes with him before he started getting dropped off. And I didn't even hesitate. And I said, that's what he needs. And she was so taken aback that I said that. And I said it so quickly because I was like, that's the answer.
Mhm.
But she was like, nobody ever said that. So in a way that like didn't point my child out. I didn't say because he's autistic. I didn't say um because you were making it so that I didn't make it about him. I just made it about like that's what he needs. Right? And the child that was with me, I like he didn't even ask any other questions. He's like,
Right.
"Oh, that's what he needs. Great."
Yep.
So I need to be here. He needs to be there. Like it's just that matter of a fact. I didn't have to identify him, her son, as anything other than that's what he needs, right? Him being autistic or anything like that had nothing to do with it. And that really impacted me when she shared that with me. And I think that's so important when we're guides and we're working with parents. I work with parents so much, and I appreciate all the parents who trust me and bring me into their worlds and their journeys because we can work so much better for these kids when we're working together. And her son gets dropped off now because we've worked so closely in his development and what he's working on and what she wants. I said, "What do you want?" She's like, "I'd like him to be able to get dropped off. I would like to have a program where he can get dropped off and have that independence." And now he has that. And so I think this I'm kind of talking about that one's part of it, but and being a guide and a facilitator, I think it's really important for us, as we've talked about even in the previous sections, and really looking at what the child needs between our observation, between risk taking, between who that individual is, what their interests are. I see myself as a facilitator and a guide where I'm harnessing what they need and I'm providing those resources and those tools. I'm providing the twine, I'm providing the pulley system, I'm providing the time and space for them to achieve what they need for themselves.
I love it. What's coming to me for this is um, I want to talk about parents as teachers because this is teachers are facilitators. And so, and then what I want to talk about is environment here. Let's see if this is the most relevant place for this.
Our next principal will talk about environment too.
Okay, well, I think it's still relevant for this too. I'll
Go
introduce
for
it.
it. I mean, I love the way the layers are happening. I think it just shows how
Yeah.
all of this comes together. I think
Yes.
that's important.
And I hope everyone else can see this too. And I hope you're getting so much value from Claudine and I. Just bringing in our stories and really bringing us these concepts to life. And so, environment, from a behavioral standpoint, environment is anything around that child. So it is the things around that child and the beings around that child. It is not only the trees and how the guide has set up, the lunch stumps and all of that, and the creek and the fire, and those things are important, and those are presented with intentionality or utilized with intentionality and purpose, and that's amazing and that's important. And from my perspective, the beings are actually the most important.
Hmm.
piece of the environment for a child. The educators, the other children around, and those things and those two components make up the environment for a child. So when I think
Hmm.
about the naturalistic components, I think about the setting. That's the
Hmm.
setting,
Yeah.
the table, fire, all of that, and then the teachers and stuff. Those are those beings. And so for a thriving nature school or even a thriving home, truly, it's really making sure those things are buffered, equipped, or sorry, the being piece, right? And so it's really just, for the purposes of working with nature schools and parents, frankly, it's our training.
Hmm.
Always trying to elevate, understand deeper, approach, better. And so when we don't understand behavior, we're actually when we approach it in the wrong way, we reinforce it also. And the
Hmm.
unfortunate part is we reinforce it for ourselves too, because if the behavior shifted, we think it worked. We think what we did worked, but it just reinforced it in a different way. And that behavior is
Hmm.
going to repeat again. And we're going to be like, what? I thought we dealt with this yesterday. Right.
Right.
So that's where we um, want to become equipped more and more and more all the time. And then, parents as teachers, the topic here is teachers are facilitators, but everyone listening, as we would all agree that parents are a child's first teacher
Hmm.
and frankly, the child's most important teacher. And so parents, I can't stress enough how to always try to find resources to elevate your own knowledge and understanding of behavior because it will do your family so much good when you understand behavior better and you can approach it the right way. You can see the need underneath the behavior and help and meet that child's need directly or help them meet that need. And
Hmm.
so, and then reinforce all the right things that can come from that. So, and then with that, parents as teachers, you do such a beautiful job of this, and many schools do. And that's what I love about nature schools is they really wrap their arms around parents and lovingly support them. And they do give, behavior tips and tricks because parents, feel safe to ask. And so,
Hmm.
and you and I've talked about that directly. Um, I think now in our world, there's such a disconnect. I think parents feel so isolated. They don't have good community so much of the time, too much of the time, and they don't have good role models. And I think, nature schools especially there's such an opportunity here to really bond and bridge the gap between the isolation of home and chaos of home sometimes
Yeah.
and school. And I actually think no longer can it just be school and then home because kids need everybody kind of on their team and on the same
Yeah.
page. And
Yes.
so,
We're all
that's
working together. Like
exactly.
whether we are or not, we're all part of that child's world. And
Yeah.
if we're not communicating,
Or
uh,
working against each other. It's really there's going to be friction things that are created. I have, four pillars that I bring schools through. Um, the founder pillar, the staff, and then the children, and then the parents, and we work through those
mhm,
pillars. And yeah, parents
that's
have
great.
such
It's
an
yeah.
important piece to support because again, that's what the children need that. And if we keep children as our agenda, then that's what their parents need our support too.
What's
So
interesting that you say that you feel there's a disconnect, and I've noticed that too because I will offer to parents, I'm like, let's just set up and have a call. And they're really shocked that I want to take the time out to talk to them about their child. Every time kids get picked up, I always talk to the parent. I'm always giving kind of a download and helping them know like what's happening and how their growth is and any challenges they had. But I will happily get on the phone and have a call and talk about it and really figure out what's best for helping their child's goals. And I think it's important that, like, those parents they're the experts, right? They know their child better, right? So it's really helpful for me as their educator and as their guide to kind of understand those things. Like I'll notice behavior changes and I'll ask the parent, I was like, anything changed recently? Like we're struggling with new things or something. Like, oh yeah, and they'll tell me like something's happened or they had an experience recently or they took a class and they had a different experience. Like just something happened in that child's world Uh, and it's helpful for me to know so that I can help that child process or just be with them in the way that they need. Because the child is not going to be able to really identify that all the time. At any age, they might not
Mm.
realize how certain things impact them. So, really making sure that we're all connected and talking and communicating with each other and respecting the parents as the experts, right?
Mhm.
The parent is the expert, and we can work together and share our knowledge, and we can give more information to the parents so that we can support them. But it's so important for the parents to really feel empowered as the expert and to be part of that team, because it's easy to feel lost as a parent. Like we're all figuring it out for our kids. They're all
Mhm.
individuals, right? Humans are it's there's not a book to say every kid should be doing this, right? They're all different. We're all figuring it out. But the more we connect and have community, and that's why Outdoor Play Connection is here, because I want to help people connect. I want you to have community. I want you to be around other people so that you have that support, because we're supposed to be in a village, right? We're not supposed to be so disconnected. And, it's great to have communities online, and it's great to be connected online. And there's so much positive on how we can be connected in that way, in what technology has given us. But there's just something in the roots of being connected and together in person and being together and outside that can give you. So,
Yeah.
being a facilitator, not only in the education, but also in building that community and supporting parents and being in that community. And if you're dropping your kids off, like you're still part of that community. We run community events so that we can bring people together. So, like our lantern walk is coming up, and I'm like excited about that because it brings the whole family in. So parents that drop them off get to see the classrooms that their kids are in and be part of something that their kids do. So being a teacher and being a facilitator goes beyond being in the classroom.
And one extra thing I want to mention in this piece, anytime we're talking about school or education, I always want to bring it back to connection. And what is connection? It is belonging and significance and trust. And so with Monica, in this little two or three sentence thing for teachers or facilitators, looking for meaningful learning opportunities and managing risk, like while all those things are important at its essence, how are we connecting with that child at the get-go of the day to
Hmm.
set them up for success and periodically throughout the day? And I have tools that I work with schools to make sure these pieces are implemented, but kids need an emotional connection every day, multiple, and a physical connection every day from their person, their guide. And so connection at the forefront, and then connection pieces all throughout the day as kids are learning. And because every time a child is told what to do, it chips a little bit of their dignity away. So when we can connect them and elevate them, then we are balancing that. When we are highlighting their
Hmm.
goodness for them or helping them notice their own goodness, we are balancing that. And so um, I just want to, I'm looking for an opportunity to bring in connection, belonging, significance, and trust. And even though actually all of that has been layered in all of these pieces, I haven't articulated it yet. And I just wanted to make sure that I did that. So anytime we can say yes to a child when they ask us for something, that's connection, that's belonging and
Hmm.
significance. And that's what I work with schools in doing, is making sure you're phrasing questions in a way where you can give a yes. Not all the time. Kids get no
Right.
sometimes. That's
Right.
okay. But where's that balance? And what is their behavior telling you they need? And how can you set up
Hmm.
the environment, the things, and the beings to make sure that need is met? So, all right.
Love that. And I know we'll talk about that more because there's also ways to say no that don't feel as a harsh no,
Sure.
right? There's ways
Absolutely.
to include children in the process of deciding what to do that maybe it's not a yes. And I know
Hmm.
we'll get to that at some point. Because that's part of like facilitating and
It is.
providing the safety, right? And providing the openness. Great. So we got that's principle 5. So we're moving on to 6 out of the 7. Here we go. Um, Place-based underpinning. So we're talking about honoring the land, local ecosystems, the indigenous culture, and diversity found in natural and human communities. Also, just following environmental justice and equity and diversity and inclusion is really, really important in the respect of all things, all living things. And I know with Outdoor Play Connection, my programs, all of these things are rooted in our mission. and making sure that we are sharing these things to the children and just thinking of these things in our programming and how we present ourselves. And I just think this is something like we could have a whole hour on this topic, like all of the
Definitely.
others, right? Um, but yeah, just like honoring the land. I mean, it can be as simple as thinking about when you're walking on your hike, like where you're placing your feet and how we're impacting that space. And, if you're foraging with your kiddos, how are you teaching them how to forage in a way that's, we're not impacting the growth of that plant in that area. Like, really, like, it comes back to like being the facilitator and how we're sharing that knowledge and but also honoring the child's ability to be curious, right? And so there's a balance here, and this could be challenging too. And these topics can be, you can teach these topics to all ages. It's going to look differently when I'm talking to my 15-year-old, my 13-year-old, or my 7-year-old, right? Because the concepts might be, able to be heard in different ways and dive a little bit deeper. But like you can share this with all ages, right? Even the little, if you're working with the 1-year-olds and the toddlers and the little ones, like they're still learning about how to honor the land and how to think about the culture and where this has all come from and the history of it, and the diversity and inclusion, right? Like we're talking about how we're including that child in my program who has like that's their need and letting everybody have their individual needs and being inclusive. I really do think kids are inherently empathetic and inherently inclusive. And, how we create an environment around them to show that can change them from that. So that's why that child, when I was like, well, that's what he needs, like that, he didn't have any follow-up questions, right? There was no argument about it. It's just, oh, that's what he needs. Right. So we're modeling that behavior of like how we can be inclusive, right? How can we, you know, use the mud kitchen and you're so focused on your project, and I'm going to give a complete different kind of concept here that might not be thought of in this context, but kids will get really focused on a project that they want to do, and then another kid comes along and they want to be part of it and they're doing something completely different. Like, how do you include them? Right? How do you participate and be in the same space when they have a completely different idea and now they're doing something that's changing what you were doing in your environment, right? And then also just talking about how what we're doing is impacting the people around us and the land around us, and just really allowing them to think about these things. And like you said, is if we want them to hold it in their head, right? They have to hold it in their heart and their hands. And this, I think, applies to that too so deeply.
I love that you brought it right back to the holding it in the hands. Um, if you look at my profile page, my daughter is holding this huge, or my picture, my profile picture on Facebook is this huge frog. I mean, it's as big as her torso. And my leg is bleeding from helping her catch this frog. So we're both in it, and we're both right there, and it's pure joy. But what I want to, a lot of people, even practitioners, of a lot of founders of nature schools, I shouldn't say a lot, many really struggle, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but with the idea of letting children truly be immersed in the
Mhm.
nature of holding the frog, catching the beetle, whatever it is. Some really believe we need to have a full respect and a hands-off approach. And in my opinion, like, how do we truly fall in love with something that we can't name and we can't touch and hold, and with all of our senses experience? We can't really defend and appreciate something we can't, that's always kind of at an arm's length away. So that's my own personal experience or opinion on that. I know others may have a different opinion, but I think our role as educators and parents is to, yes, try and do more observing than holding. But when holding is there, then how do we have the skills to honor that,
Mhm.
as respectfully as possible, and letting that animal go as quickly as possible. And so, what are your thoughts on that? And do you need to go or anything, or are you doing
No, we're
okay?
good.
Okay.
Good.
What are your thoughts on that? about are you all in for kiddos being able to hold all the things and truly immerse themselves in that learning, or do you agree more with the idea that nope, it's nature, don't touch it, that's a live
Mm.
being, let it be in its environment, our role is not to mess with it?
So I lean towards, you know, the land is here for the children too.
Mhm.
And that children have been running through the earth for as long as time,
Millennia.
right?
Mhm.
And so I do understand where the concern comes from in like
Mhm.
protecting the land, but I think that also comes from a fear of that children don't know how, and that they're going to do damage. And I honestly think that adults are doing more damage to this earth than a child trying to hold a frog.
Mhm.
Um, and so I also come from a place of showing them how. So one of
Mhm.
the guides that we've recently added to our team is actually studying environmental science and knows so much about animals, and it's so great with the kids too, and just showing like, hey, when you hold a frog, your hands have to be wet, and this is why.
Mhm.
Right? Right? Because we can hurt them, right? So all the kids are putting their hands in the mud and they're getting their hands all wet. And they're like, oh, I want to hold like it's not even a question for them. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
we don't want to hurt the frog, so we just need our hands wet. So yes, you can hold it, but this is how, right? Yes, you can walk through this trail. People have been walking, trailblazing for however long, right? But this is how you can do it in a way that's not
Mhm.
just tramping on everything and hurting the plants, right? There's a way to choose your path, right? Um, and so there's a way to, I mean, of course, we also teach them like you don't want to hold poison ivy, right? Like
Mhm.
there are some plants you don't want to. And we explain like why don't we just grab and touch mushrooms? Well, mushrooms are complex. There's so many of them. Mushroom identifiers check in with identifiers before they do certain things with mushrooms because there's so many of them. And we do explain that it's not touching the mushroom that's the problem. It's consuming the mushroom that's a problem. Now, if you touch the mushroom, what happens? Every single child says, well, we're going to touch our face and our mouth. And I'm like, right. So then I'm like, that's why we can't touch them, is because we don't want to then accidentally put them near our mouth if we, especially if we don't know how toxic or what kind of mushroom they are and how our bodies interact with the mushroom. It doesn't make the mushroom bad. It still has a place in nature. It's just how our bodies as humans may interact with it, because there are plants that are toxic to us that are not toxic to animals, and they have
Mhm.
a place in nature. There's a reason they're here. Just because it's not good for us doesn't mean it's not good. So we really want to dive in and let the kids know why so that they can really understand it and not, number one, be afraid, right? We don't want them
Mhm.
to be afraid. We don't want to create that fear. We want them to have the knowledge. They are choosing to not touch poison ivy. They are choosing to not touch the mushrooms. They are choosing to handle the frog in a way that is gentle and knowing how to keep the frog safe. So if you cover their eyes, if you're holding a frog and you cover their eyes, they don't feel as afraid because they don't think they can go anywhere. Right. So he's taught this to us and the children. And so like they know how to hold that frog in a way that like they're connecting with that frog and the frog's okay. And if we see the frog getting nervous, we're like, I think that frog needs to connect back down where he goes. And they let them go because they don't want to hurt nature. They don't want to hurt the animals. That is not their intention. Their
Mhm.
curiosity is there for a reason, and it's important that we help them continue to be curious. The more times we tell them don't touch, the more times they will not touch. And it stunts their curiosity and it will stop them from having that natural sense to learn, be curious, check things out, make the pulley, make the swing, figure out the frog, pick up the worm, flip over the rocks. We don't want to stop that. So
Mhm.
every time, if we have to say no, I always follow up with making sure I don't just say it. I make sure they understand it. I
Mhm.
present it in a way that they're contributing and their understanding as to why we're making that decision collectively. It's not just a hard no. Even if it's a hazard and it's like we can't climb that tree. I don't just walk away from that and say you can't climb the tree. What do I see? What do you see? Why do we make this choice? And then they're part of the decision process. So that's all allowing them to see the land as it is and to make those choices and how we're being there. And if we are foraging, We're looking at how much is here. How will this impact this space? How does it impact the animals that might eat this plant? Is there any, why are we taking this plant, right? The why. Are we just going to take it and then what? Are we just going to like be done with it and leave it and now this plant can't grow? Or is there a purpose, right? What is our purpose? And really teaching this foundation, it will grow with them, right? So like when my 15-year-old is co-leading a class, like she knows the trails, she knows where to go, she knows how to protect the land, and she knows how to share it with other kids, right? And so they share it with each other, and they all are part of this collective um, decision process. It's every single one of us has to make that choice,
Mhm.
right? Because once we start telling them they have to, it's no longer their choice. And like you said earlier, early on, long time ago, at the beginning of this, and you said we all want control, right? We need to feel some control. And so when we're
Mhm.
giving them that control to be part of that decision, it's really going to let them interact in a way that's not going to harm.
Yeah,
I understand where people come from where it's like, we don't leave any trace. We do our best in that, but to leave no trace means to not even walk through the forest.
it exactly.
We're going to leave footprints. We're going to be there. The forest needs us too.
It
It
does.
needs us to be there.
To love it and protect it and play in
Mhm.
it, and
And to,
I
yes,
100%
and
agree,
to
and
play. Yes,
yeah,
we interact to climb a tree,
yeah, to love
right?
that tree, yes.
The tree
Um,
wants the kid to be climbing in it?
um, you know, if a child wants to hold a frog and is just straight up told not to, the things that we risk with that. Now, there's a time and place for a kiddo to be told no, and there's a time and with that, inviting them in, just like you said, and helping them really understand why, and you're getting that acknowledgement and that agreement, and they're all in with that. But when
Right.
we just say no, what we're doing is, for the frog example, is we're eliminating the opportunity for them to learn how to do it correctly,
Hmm.
you know um and then also what ends up happening is that drive is so strong in them to be truly intimately connected with nature, they're going to do it anyway. They
Yes.
really, really are, and they're going to do it the wrong way, and they're going to hurt the frog
Hmm.
because there was an opportunity to do it the right way, but that has been shut down, and so they're waiting for no adult to be looking, and they're going to do it anyways. That's their
Yep.
natural drive and curiosity. That's their job.
Yes.
The job. And
Yes.
so I just, coming to highlight that we really want to be careful what we say no to. Saying no is cool.
Hmm.
It's okay. We want to be purposeful and intentional with that. And then make sure we can help a child, be there with them and accepting that and walking away. It's really hard to walk, keep them from frogs that are everywhere. So
So
the other thing,
fun.
with the conservation of land that I am feeling frustrated with. So first of all, are you on private land? Are you on public
Mm.
land?
We're on
Or
public land.
you are on public land.
Hmm.
Okay. What so here in Colorado, I'm in the high desert of Colorado, and I have not been able to find any public land for kiddos that isn't so protected that everyone is like, nope, must stay on the trail,
Hmm.
a concrete trail a lot of the times. And yes, there's nature trails too, of course, there's lots of that, but there's not a lot of opportunities just to go out and explore and build and frolic. Like, no, this land has been protected for the animals to do that, not
Right.
children. And I find myself getting really, really frustrated that it's almost like we have to find someone with private land and get that permission to go on that land and truly enjoy, because people really look down on the idea of kids building forts and kids,
Yeah.
trampling through, and it really breaks my heart. And there's been not enough purposeful balance in making sure kiddos have access to raw nature to truly just immerse and enjoy and frolic and build and play. And it's really sad.
Yeah, that's really hard. And I know how lucky we are to be able to be in this space because, like, the kids can come back and bring their parents there. I know kids do it in our programs. They learn how to read the trail markers. They're confident about the trails and they bring their family back and they go on a hike. And it's great. I mean, there's challenges to being on public land too. There's a lot of things I can't do. I can't
Yeah,
leave things there. I don't have my own structure. A lot of things I can't do because I'm on that land. But there's also a lot of benefits. So I think it's always, and when you're on private land, there's things that you have to deal with there
yeah,
too. So I think it's just important to know that, like, it is unfortunate that you can't just find a place for kids to just be. And we have places that are more strict and whatnot. And so I'm very grateful that we have that space for, I really feel, when I was a kid, I just had a lot of woods down the block that I would just go to. There was somebody probably owned it. It's now a house. But like back then, it was just a plot of land undeveloped. And nobody was there watching us or with us. Like we just went there. The neighborhood kids would just go there, find salamanders under logs, right? Unsupervised. It's like, to me, it's like such a gift for the kids that we work with and for my kids to have that experience where they get a piece of that childhood where they're like, let's turn rocks. It rained. Let's move the logs. Let's see who's there. But let's also make sure they have their habitat back. Um, it's so important to have that experience. Like we can't lose that part of childhood. We
We
can't lose
want
it. We can't protect everything where we're keeping it away from our children. They need to experience, and the earth needs to have them experience nature. It's just part of the connection we have. We are connected to nature 1,000%. So yeah, it's I hope we can find a place where um that feeling of like protecting it from children is erased, because I'll tell you, when we have classes out there and we'll have people walk by, and especially people who I know are older than me, and they're just so happy and full of glee to see these children doing what I know they did too as kids, and they will stop and tell us it's so great to see these kids out here, right? And like so I think there is a lot of support out there for it, and I only hope that you get that support so you guys can figure it
I
out.
haven't given up, and I'm trying to get more nature, local schools here to kind of do this work, and so we'll find
It'll
one.
happen.
It's just interesting. Colorado,
Hmm.
high desert. I mean, it's
Right.
just very odd, but we'll not giving up, and it's our job. And if we want, our world to be protected, this is our job.
Hmm.
Nature lovers who will strive to defend her. So,
Right. They need to experience it.
yep,
Need to hold it in their hands.
yes,
All
exactly. All
right,
right,
so number 7, we've made
last
it.
one we
We've made
did.
it. The values promote environmental literacy and ecological identity. It's giving personal responsibility to care for each other and the natural world. So we're giving values of, I love these words here, empathy, gratitude, kindness, respect, caretaking, and perseverance are all reflected in the sustainable practices of the learning community. And I just love the way this is described and how this is part of this of these principles. And just this is like it all wraps it all together, right? As we've been saying, this is like a how everything is interconnected in all of these principles, but it really does. And I think we were touching on this in the conversation we just had, in just creating that value for the kids, and in just being in a space that has nature available. The kids become attached to the space that they're in, and they remember things. They will say, like, remember when we made that village? That was so cool. And this is where our restaurant was, or remember when we went on that hike and we were on this tree. Like they remember and they connect to it in ways that it becomes part of their memory. And it does create that empathy and those emotions that we're talking about here, the gratitude that they have for having the tree that they bounce on or they climb on, or the stick that they used to make a stick person, right? Just all of that connection that happens when we're promoting those values and really bringing that identity to the kids. I think it's so easy, like you said, to say they're just running around and playing, but all of these things are really happening when we're giving them the time and the space to be there.
Yes, absolutely. And right along with it, what's coming up for me is our modeling of these things in this space. Our modeling of empathy and gratitude and kindness and respect and caretaking and perseverance. Um, in when we're modeling those things in joy.
Mhm.
Uh, I the the parents I work with here, what's coming up for me at the second is I recommend to parents, don't do laundry in a vacuum. So sorry, this is relevant, I promise. But I always recommend, like, if you're gonna take your child's laundry, or just say, hey, can I grab your laundry? If you're gonna do it anyways, just model that for them in joy. So that when you expect them to do it, have seen you do it multiple
Mm.
times, enjoy,
Hmm.
right? So
Right.
just giving that our modeling matters more than we know. And with that, watching our hypocrisies. Um, what came up to me too is clouds and ice in this. And I didn't do enough of this with my nature school. I had it, in 2016, so a long time ago, but if I had it again, and when I do have another one, which I will, I'll pull in these pieces that are so we're always learning, right? But
Of course.
when a child can be so intimately connected to name the cloud, that's a cumulonimbus or the cirrus, and that is so deeply connecting.
Mm.
um, when they can read Mother Nature and know her, and that, and what that brings and what that means, and it's this wisdom and internal knowing that they're developing, that self-trust, and that comes back to belonging and significance in nature. I belong here,
Hmm.
and I know things, right? And then you know the knowledge of ice. I we have a pond here on our property, and last year, my kiddos wanted to go play on the ice, and I don't know the wisdom of ice. We have lost this. I've thought about this so many times since then. It's like our ancestors knew this. They knew the wisdom
Hmm.
of ice. They could tell what the sounds mean. They knew, and we have lost this, and with so many other things, right? And we're bringing it back. So we I didn't it didn't stop us. I We tied ropes on, and we went and tested it and went through, and we had a blast. And we're learning the wisdom of ice through our experiences again. And this knowledge used to be passed down, and we're starting here, and we're going to pass it down now. So it's not
Yep.
too late. Um, and I Being connected to nature is just so important. And it's so pride feeling for kiddos when a
Oh,
child
yeah.
can tell their parent, that's you know, cirrus cloud, and this is what this means, and it looks like this. And parents are like, wow, you know things, important things. Another thing that I come back to a lot is meaningful. So much school, isn't meaningful for kids. It's and so there's anyways, really making sure learning is so meaningful for kiddos that they can take it and know it and embody it, and pass it on too. So, all right, that's what I wanted to add.
I'm gonna just bounce off of that a little bit because I
Yeah.
love that you were talking about identifying the clouds because it's leaf season by us with it's right now the fall season and we're always doing things with leaves and it's a great time to help the kids identify trees because the leaves are on the ground and up in the tree. So they're playing with the leaves, they're pushing them around, right? But what if you knew what the leaves were? And so we did a great project where they had to play a matching game and we had boards where they had to match leaves with. So they're running around looking for leaves that match the leaf, but it identifies the leaf for them too. And when you're going through and you see all these leaves and you pick it up and you can say it's a birch or a red
Oh,
maple, right? Or a white oak or a chestnut oak, and understanding like the that there's many kinds of oak trees. But then you look up and you say, oh, where did it come from? Right? If we're finding we can't find a lot of birch leaves, so there might not be a lot of birch trees, but we're finding all of these oak leaves. So like, where are they? And when the leaves are still on the trees and on the ground, you can look up and you can see and match them on the trees. And then we look at the bark,
yes.
right? Because in the winter, the leaves won't be there. So then they start identifying the bark with the leaves and and they're connecting all of that. It's not, the
Mhm.
leaves on the ground are fun to play with, and we've made tons of leaf piles and used them for pathways and all of that, and lots of fun projects with leaves, but they're interested in it because they're using it. We didn't tell them they had to do it. We just put it out there and they wanted to, and they all worked together to do it. They wanted to see if, one leaf would win over another and how many they could find. Can they, are there that many trees there? Are there more birch? There were not a lot of birch leaves. They couldn't find them. So like there can't be a lot of birch trees here. Right. So like that whole inquiry and connecting in that way and identifying things help them connect to it. So when they're walking through, the next week and they're picking up leaves and like, look, I found a chestnut oak. I'm like, yes, you
Oh,
did. Right?
yes.
Because it's not about just the activity, it's how the activity stays with them.
Is
Right? It's the
meaningful.
meaningful, right? So it's so great that they matched all these leaves and they had a fun game that they created out of it. And everywhere from like the little 4 year old to the 13 and 15-year old are doing this in their own way, right? And participating in it, but it became something that they're then collecting them next week. And like they're still talking about leaves and they're still and like, but what's this one? We didn't do this one yet. Right. So we're still learning about more because they're interested and they want to. Right. So, like you said, it's meaningful. They want to do that. And it's just all of that and understanding it. Right. When they feel so proud. That's why they take their parents on a hike and show them the paths that they know, right? And they'll even tell them, like, I'm going to take you on an off trail, but I know where I'm going because I tell them every time if there's no trail markers, you need to be with someone who knows exactly where they're going, or you need to know exactly where you're going. And it's always, I'm like, and lucky you have me who knows exactly where they're going. But it's so wonderful to have a kid feel so empowered to be able to read those trail markers and take other people, right? And
And
then to show them.
yes, that sense of pride, like you mentioned. And back
Mhm.
to the birch that may not be so prevalent, that leads to that awareness. And like, I wonder why there isn't a lot
Why?
of birch here. And if a child is so inclined and they have the space and time and a guide allowing for that, maybe facilitating a little bit if the invitation is there, um, maybe something has happened and there's not a lot,
Mhm.
and so they develop this drive to investigate and support this cause of maybe finding one and protecting it and all that good stuff that would never have happened if the space and
Right.
time were available and if the nature education wasn't available. um,
Yeah.
Learning about that stuff in a desk, just they can't hold it. If they can't hold it in their hands, in their heart and their hands, they can't hold it in their head, not really. Um,
What's interesting too is when we put this project out in any project, like we're not, the kids will say, well, do we have to do this? I'm like, no. And it's very interesting to me. The kids who ask me if they have to do it are always the ones that get the most into it
yep.
because they're asking me because they, and I'm like, no, you don't have to. And they
Then they're
literally
like,
turn around and start doing it.
okay, cool. I get to do it my own way, how I
Mhm.
want.
Yeah.
I have already ideas. I just didn't want to be told how, what to do.
Yeah.
Um, this leads me to kiddos are told what to do 500 to 1,000 times a day.
Yes. Oh, yes.
You may have heard me say this. I say this
Mhm.
all the time.
Yep.
The schools I work with, a lot of them try to get it down to 30 times a day of telling a kiddo what to do. It's
Hmm.
hard and
Hmm.
so powerful for the guide and for the children. But um, they don't want to be told what to do again. They just want time and space to figure it out. And that's the goal of education, right? Is to,
Yep.
hey, here's some things, figure it out and
Yeah.
develop that grit and perseverance.
And working together too, like it wasn't an individual project, but it also wasn't presented as a group project. And some of the kids were doing it on their own and finding their own leaves and really like focused on like what colors they were and how many they could find and finding one of each one. And then others were like working together where one kid had like literally 10 pieces of taped to their fingers, holding the tape so someone else could tape on all the things. Someone would take big pieces of tape and sticking like tons of leaves on the at the same time. So it was like all of these different ways to interact with it and everyone got involved. Like everyone was doing it. Some of them were working with the guides. The older kids were working with the younger kids. It's just and the reading that I did for this because like we do little parts of the reading like anytime we have a snack, right? We have their attention. So they're
Yeah.
willing to hear us. But I didn't read a long chapter about trees. I mean, the book I have on trees is pretty thick, but I was like, hey guys, look at this. I was like, did you know? And like I don't read it word for word from the book sometimes because in our younger classes we'll read wonderful picture books and stuff like that. But when we're reading out of more educational books and like almost what you would consider a textbook, I'm pulling out the pieces from it that I know are interesting and it's how we present it, right? And so we're talking about, I was like, oh, those really red leaves? I was like, they have more sugar in them. They're like sweet trees, right? Like, so we're talking about like how the chlorophyll reacts and how the sun and how it interacts with why they're so colorful and why some trees are more colorful than others and the sugar content. I have kids walking around talking about all of this because they were immersed in it. Like you said, they were holding it and we're giving them the knowledge, and they're soaking it in because they're in that environment, and I'm following their ability to be able to be focused. I'm not expecting them to sit for 30 minutes to take a lesson on trees. The lesson on trees is them interacting with the trees, giving them little snippets of information for them to take and apply and create more curiosity for them to ask more questions. Because when we're answering questions, they're taking in knowledge because they are interested. And interest-based learning is one of the best ways to actually hold on to the knowledge. I do know that when I'm interested in something and I go read about it, I remember it much
Exactly.
better than if I have to. And there are things in my life I have to, and we do it, but it's just the way we're wired is that is when we hold on to that information the most. And for us to be able to give them the value of nature and the responsibility that we're hoping that they'll take on for our planet, we have to respect that how they want to learn about it and how they're going to interact with it.
Because they're going to protect the planet in their own way too, and we're honoring that. We're
They
honoring that part.
are.
And
They
had
are.
you had an agenda that you had to adhere to instead of the children being the agenda, or if you had, if you had your curriculum that you had to adhere to instead of the children being the curriculum, so many opportunities have been lost. That good
Right.
little guy that said, "Hey, do we have to do this?" And he did it. If he would have had to, he would have resisted every second of the
Would
way.
not have done it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you would have fought him if that would, I mean, if that's the personality of the educator, right? Like you
Right.
will do this and
Right.
that happens. But anyways,
I mean,
um,
look, there's things that they do have to do, right? There's
yep.
safety, but I feel like when we do give those moments, the kids really do respect them differently because they have so much freedom. And so they
Exactly.
feel the importance of us having to give that directive, right? And
Yes.
even though it's hard, it's like they trust us more to help them through it being hard because they know we're not just saying you can't do it and that we're not, that we're giving them the freedom of having those choices. And often they'll even just come to the conclusion, yeah, you're right. Maybe I shouldn't climb that log because it is not
Mhm.
thick enough to hold my weight, or I can see it's decomposing and there's enough fungus growing on it, right? Because that I should probably be more cautious on that. They're making the choices, right? We're providing the information, and they're not turned off, right? We
No.
don't want to turn off that curiosity. And especially when you're working with neurodivergent children in many different ways, in identifying with PDA or ADHD, like it's so important to understand and to respect their brains and how they think and what they need. And that's where those individual needs come in that, I might say it to one kid differently than I say to another,
Mhm.
right? Because I know it's just differently in how it needs to be presented. Because I don't
Mhm.
want to shut it off for them
Exactly.
either, right?
And they need to receive it in a different way.
Yeah, we have so many individual interactions. I think that's important to mention too. And just as talking about like the environmental literacy and teachers as facilitators, like and just all of these principles, the more one-on-one or smaller group interactions we have, I think the better. When you have everyone together, we definitely do that where we're all together and we talk about things. But when you can really connect in smaller groups or one-on-one, I feel like there's so much opportunity there for learning and experience because it's more focused. And like this LEAF project happened for everybody, but in very different ways. And we were able to connect with all the kids in different ways. It wasn't like, okay, everybody go do this project. And so much happened. Even the kids who wanted nothing to do with it, like, are still talking about leaves and
Yeah.
identifying them. And I love that for them and what we can do. So we've gotten through all of these
Mhm.
um, principles, I think, so wonderfully. I know
I think
there's
so too.
lots of great things that we've both shared, and I'm really excited for listeners to hear how you can take just this is one page in the book and just kind of diving in a bit on all of these. And I know we're going to talk about all of them so much more as we talk more, but I know we're here to share our own personal experiences and our knowledge and really connect with the listeners so that they can feel seen. I want our listeners to feel seen in like going through the challenges. I know that we'll talk about things and that are talked about a lot, but I want you to know that we're here to hear you and see you, and that there are challenges between putting on the gear
Mhm.
and all those layers and taking time to observe and pause, and like you said, focusing in on those senses and having the tools that I know Megan will share for us to be able to get through those challenges so that we can experience all of the benefits.
that nature has to offer. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thanks, Megan. I am so happy to be doing this with you. Super excited about what we can put out there and help others enjoy nature and kiddos to be out in nature. And I'm so happy we're doing this together.
Thank you. I'm excited. Everyone, we recommend you go get the book, join Monica's Facebook groups. If you're, whether you're, again, no matter what level or that you're coming at this with, whether you're a full-fledged educator with with a school already, um, or you're thinking about maybe making a school, or you're a parent that just wants to deepen your connection with your kiddos out in nature, or you're a teacher kind of tired of the system and you want to try something new and this really resonates with you and it might be a little scary too, and that's okay. Um, we are here to help you. We're using this as our foundation, our springboard, and we hope you have found this so helpful. Again, reach out to us if you have any questions, and we're happy to support you
Great. And
along
I'll
this.
make sure we'll make sure that we link uh where you can get the book. We'll also link our own Outdoor Play Connections socials and also Megan's ways you can connect with her. So stay connected and ask us questions. We're here to answer those questions, and we're just happy to be sharing with all of you. Until next time, when we're going to start opening up to chapter 1.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.